tell our audience a little bit about your background. Feel free to just share what they should know about you.
Yeah, well, I'm originally from Venezuela, and I grew up in a family of musicians. My parents died when I was very little, and I grew up with my father's side of the family. Um, Grew up always really interested in science. Actually, my games when I was a little girl, it was all about being a scientist, and
Interesting.
but meanwhile, I was immersed in this musical environment. For some reason, I didn't feel that was something that I would see myself doing entirely, because, like I said, I was really passionate about science, and I went into engineering school to do geological engineering in Venezuela, and but meanwhile, I was always involved with music, and that led to a lifestyle where I was both, doing geology after I graduated and doing music at the same time. So I always felt that I would do the two things at the same time. I felt like I needed that kind of balance, the science part and the music side. So, but, many things happened along the way.
Yeah. And so just to take our audience back to the beginning of your professional career, let's say you graduated, you were pursuing music as a hobby, you were big into science and engineering, had an engineer in mind, clearly. So how did your career path begin? Where was that? And can it take us back there?
Well, my first recording experience was in year 2000. They were, I had already, gotten some attention from the things that I was doing in music, because I was performing quite a bit within the university campus.
Okay.
And I won a festival, a vocal festival called the Usavista Voice Festival. And through that event, I was able to meet really wonderful musicians. One of those was Antulio Mora, a pianist that I started playing later with. And he introduced me to this producer that was looking for singers to do this CD. It was called Juegos de Playa. So I was already, I was always in love with jazz since I was 5 years old, since I first heard Ella Fitzgerald on the radio, and I knew I always wanted to do that. And I was able to start doing jazz after that event in 1995. Well, once I met this producer and we did that CD, that was a wonderful experience for me to get into the studio and kind of see all the process. And I knew that my next step was going to be to do a CD of my own. And it was always on my plans. However, right after that happened, or at the same time when that was happening, I was working for PDVSA back in Venezuela, and I got awarded with a scholarship. So I said, well, this would be a really wonderful opportunity for me to, go outside, be immersed in another culture, learn other things. So I took on the geology masters, and kind of all that momentum that was happening in Venezuela had to be cut off. I really didn't measure what a big impact was it going to have on my musical side until I was here, totally immersed in my master's degree and my new job as a geologist after I finished. And I realized that that change of losing all your connections, having to build everything from zero, and the fact that I was coming from Venezuela into the United States, which is the birthplace of jazz. It was a challenge for me to kind of overcome my own perceptions and my own fears. But when did the moment of change came? When I realized that I had been for too long too focused on music. On geology, and that a part of me was missing, a part that I knew well, and that I couldn't let go at all. I needed to rescue it, and I needed to get back to that goal of continuing to do a second CD, and just get all the tools that I needed to do that path. And at the beginning, I said, well, it's going to be in parallel, like I always thought. But the more I got into it, the more I realized that, okay, the next step was going to be a second CD. The more I realized that there's so many other things that come with bringing a CD out. You have to put yourself out as an artist, and it wasn't a defining moment for me. It was just the process of doing all the things that I needed to do to become and to present myself as an artist that started opening the visions and the paths that I needed to make for the next step. So I never, even though I may sometimes think well ahead in the future, generally I think of things in the shorter term, in specific goals that I can attain with the things that I have. And for me, it was very clear that one of those goals was to have that CD out, right? So that was the first thing. Have the CD out, have a website ready, have, all present yourself as an artist, the pictures, biography, everything. And then once I get there, I'll see what happens.
Right. So you wanted to kind of prove to yourself that, okay, yes, I can do this. I can do this while I'm a full-time geologist, and kind of get to that milestone and see what happens after that.
Exactly.
That is interesting. So I guess the step by step, taking it one step at a time, is something that is less of a fear and uncertainty. I guess if you take it just a step, if you only think what you need to get to a point.
Exactly.
To the next point,
it's much
rather
more
than the
manageable.
destination.
It is much more manageable.
Right.
I think that you can never define yourself by a single point of reference. And what I mean by that is that, like if we go back to when I was a child, and I always felt that I wanted to be a scientist, right? If you get stuck with that idea that I want to be a scientist, right? And life is too long to not evolve. Yes, I became a scientist, but what happens after you become a scientist? Well, yes, I recorded a CD. What happens after you record a CD? And then there's always a next step. So yes, it's easier to manage things when you know that everything is just an escalation for the next step, and that you're always going to be changing and evolving along the way.
That's a very good insight. That's a very good advice for anybody pursuing anything, really, any career or any personal development type goal, for sure. And so what prompted you to finally say, yes, I'm ready to do this full time? What prompted you to actually pull that trigger or switch, whatever?
So after I recorded my CD, well, I said, okay, this is where I want it to be. And then you realize that there's another myriad of goals that you need to set up. However, during that time, interestingly, right after I recorded my CD, I was so focused on getting it done in the studio work that I was not, singing outside that much. So it was a period of quietness after I recorded. I performed, but it was a certain period of quietness for not being so active out, in the scene, being dedicated to that project. And that was a project of, that was a moment of introspection for me. Because, on one hand, I had just finished that goal, but, I was trying to see how could I take it to the next level. And I kind of met people that I connected with that were really influential for me to figure out how the next step was going to look like. One of the things that I started considering was becoming a full-time artist. At the beginning, there was a very dreading thought, because I have, always had the security of my job, and in the oil industry is a well-paying job.
For sure, yeah.
I fought really hard for it. I applied myself to make it happen the best way possible. I was doing really good, and just think about not having that security. For me, it was just like incredibly scary, but I was very curious, and I started asking people that were already there, and I started researching people, on the internet that would give me some light as to, how does that feel like? How does that work for them? Because I couldn't figure it out. One of those people that I met was Adriana Mederos, an artist in Boston that we became friends really quickly, and she invited me to her house. She's a visual artist, and she is that kind of person that I think has understood that she has to live her passion, and it has consequences, but she chooses to still do that because she couldn't see herself doing anything different, right? And she told me about all the difficulties that she has and how she makes those difficulties work out. And that started kind of opening my mind to realize that, yeah, I mean, even if you don't have the security of what you know, you have to trust that you have the capacity in you to just solve the problems that you have ahead, because you have a creative mind. So that's kind of how I started giving into the idea and researching even more. And then I realized, okay, if I ever, in a very distant future, I decide to become a full-time artist, I'm definitely going to need to have a plan and to cover skills that I felt at that moment I didn't have, or they weren't completely there. So I said, well, I'm just gonna think of the what ifs, right, and the possibilities that I'm gonna open. If I was a full-time artist, I would need to know about this. I would need to. So what I did was a 3-year plan, where I was going to take the classes that I needed on both music, on visual arts. In my plan, if I could have put it in, there would have been, public speaking and, all sorts of things. But of course, I had to focus on the things that were more important and that I had the time to do. So that's what I did. I did my plan. It had a deadline. I went through and I did it, as I said. And it's funny how the universe works, because it's like, once you start doing something, I feel that the whole universe confabulates in making it happen. And at 3 years mark, after I had done that writing, the crash in the oil industry came. And at BP, we got given the opportunity to say, okay, do you want to leave the company, and you would receive your severance package. And at the moment, I actually thought that would be the perfect opportunity for me to do it. But I was kind of still scared, and I started asking to my close friends that worked with me at the time, like, what do you think? Maybe I should do this. This is the right moment. And everybody was like, don't do it. Don't.
Really?
Don't. This is going to be crazy. You're not going to survive. It's going to be impossible. And that, between that and being like too distracted and busy with my projects, at work and everything, I kind of let the deadline pass. However, for some fortunate situation, something didn't work with one of the persons at the company, and that person, kind of influenced that I was, out of the company, during that moment of, a lot of people being laid off. So I kind of like see that as actually he did really make me a favor.
Like a universe is helping you to
yeah, because
bring you back on that.
I mean, if when you don't listen to that internal voice and you don't trust it, and you start asking for advice from people outside, they don't know all the details. They don't know everything that. They don't have the full spectrum of things, and they're going to decide from their own insecurities and their own fears, and so that's why I think it's so delicate to ask for advice. The first you need to find the answers in yourself, or if you're going to ask for advice, you just have to be very careful who you ask it from.
Right.
So regardless, the universe really made it happen at the 3-year mark, and I did my job on my side. And so when that happened, it was great because I had a severance package from the company. I was prepared on the things that I had set out to do. So I said, well, at this moment, I can do 2 things. I can like really hold on to what I know, suffer for what I lost, get depressed for the change, or I can embrace this opportunity.
Right.
I can, because I already had a plan, I had been working on it, and actually make the best of it and really focus on that. Because at that moment there were so many options, right? The option of like I said, hold on to that, and then or say, well, I really don't want to lose the security of my job. I want to have some sort of I could, for example, not necessarily look for a full-time job, but maybe like a part-time job or something like that. But I mean, to make this happen in music as an artist, you really need to devote your soul and your entire being to make it happen, because there's so many tasks that go around the everyday work that is involved. Not only, the main thing is the music. You have to sound right, you have to know your repertoire, you have to make sure that everything is sounding good. But then the other side of that is, well, make sure that you have all the things that represent you, they have to be in shape. Your website, your everything. You have to connect with other people. You have to look for opportunities. You have to plan for events, that go beyond just a regular gig, and always try to strive for doing different things. So it's an intense work,
right.
And nobody's going to do it for you in this day. Yeah. So you really have to dedicate to doing it full time. So I decided that I was not going to have a plan B. My plan A was going to be music, and I was going to make it happen no matter what, because I trusted that I had the possibilities.
Yeah. So in those times of self-doubt, when you're thinking, should I do this? Should I not? Can I make it through these 3 years? Or will the money that I have last? Or how is it going to look like? So in those moments of self-doubt, and I'm sure others can relate, whatever they're pursuing in life, how did you build yourself back up? How did you kind of come out of it and convince yourself, yes, I'm going to continue, I'm going to stay strong, and I'm going to neglect all the negativity and all the negative voice and stuff and things like that. So what helped you? If you have any method that you can share with our audience, that would certainly help many people to kind of go through that stage where there's a lot of negativity and self-doubt, and come out of it and still pursue what you were set to do.
Yeah, well, you have to know yourself, right? The main thing is that we all go through different stages and different life, ways of thinking. And my priorities, of course, changed from when I was a child to when I was a student at the university to what I achieved later. I mean, it's been a change. And of course, for me, at one point, the most important thing was to have security. The security of the stability of a house, of everything. And I don't regret being, where I was to achieve that, because that was very important to me. Now, on the other hand, it became very clear to me that after I had come to that point, my priority was to live a very fulfilling life. I think I grew up also to see how the corporate world, moves. I saw so many layoffs at PDVSA, and when I was there, and I saw many layoffs being in the company here, and I said to myself, well, it doesn't matter how passionate you are about a project in a corporation that is not yours. It doesn't matter how much of your soul you bring to it, no matter how much energy, how much sweat, you're always dispensable. And when I became clear about that, I just didn't like that idea. And to me, it was, a matter or the moment to prioritize and to understand and to know that I prefer to dedicate my life to things that I can really hold on to and that are going to be fulfilling for me, even if I don't have the same level of comfort, economic comfort. For me, it was much more important to be happy and to feel that I have a purpose with what I'm doing. In the oil industry, is a necessary thing for the world, or at least the world as we know it. But that that only really benefits the people that are at the high level of the corporation. It benefited me because it gave me the security to find a wonderful stability at one point in my life. But I think I wanted something more. I wanted a spiritual kind of fulfillment. And when you know yourself well enough to understand what you want, because I'm not going to say that everybody has to feel the same about this or have a spiritual quest like I do. But when you know yourself and you know your priorities, and you also know what do you have to give to the world, then it becomes more easy to make decisions as to how are you going to take it to the next step. Now, how do you deal with the doubt? When you have a vision, it's less. Is not so. You're not going to have as many doubts because the moment that you visualize things and you kind of plan out your steps and the how you're going to manage risk and all these things, it's easier to trust that you're going to have the way of doing things. Now, I don't recommend to people that they just throw everything and start following their passion. It's not the way that it works. You have to cultivate yourself. You have to cultivate who you are. You have to get out of the distraction of the race of making money every day. Yes, of course you have to make it because we need to live it, but you have to give space in your life for knowing yourself, for cultivating your gifts. And through that process, I think it's going to become clear what are the next steps, what's the next goal. And as you grow on those goals, then more fields are going to open to you. When I feel doubtful, I just think, well, maybe I just haven't explored all the possibilities yet. Maybe I have to approach this in a different manner. I have to do something different to what I'm doing, and that's kind of how I go out of it.
And would you say that your career as a geologist and your business experience at corporate world, that print that it has on your sort of work ethic, business skills, planning, organizing, project management, how much do you feel that impacted your owning your own business of yourself, and being a manager, being the owner, and having to manage this brand? How much of that do you think was an impact on the existing career?
It's critical. It's very critical. If I didn't have the skills that I learned in the corporate world, it would be probably a little bit more difficult for me to do the things that I'm doing right now. But I'm truly, blessed that I had that time to, know how to work in a corporate world, set out my deadlines, The most important thing about, I think, that experience is to be, to treat my projects with as much respect as I would treat it if I was in a corporate world. Like once I set up a deadline, I'm not the kind of person that thinks, oh well, nobody's going to get affected if I don't do it. I can just push it out. No, it doesn't work like that. I do everything I can to finish on time, to be and to deliver it to myself, as if I was delivering it to somebody else that was looking over me. Because now even more that I'm alone in this enterprise, I have so many people that are with me. I'm not completely alone. My husband is my biggest support and partner on this. But now that I am the one that is responsible for making these things happen, I feel like I have even less of an opportunity or an excuse to delay things, because I feel that I'm in a race against time, and it's a race for, first of all, understanding that I took over this task at a moment where I am much more mature in my life, which is a blessing, but at the same time, I feel that I need to have things done as quickly as possible because time is passing, and I don't have all my life, and life is short, and 2 years go like that, and 10 years go, immediately. So if I don't keep my deadlines, how I set them out, nothing's gonna get accomplished.
Very, very wise words of encouragement, business advice. So much value out of it. I'm sure that this will, our audience will really enjoy watching this. What does success mean to you?
In the simplest approach, success for me is to be able to do what I do, or do what I love, and get rewarded spiritually and economically, to live a life where I feel comfortable, that I have what I need to live. I'm not looking for out of the charts economic things. I've come to realize that material things are just things that come and go, and it's an illusion. But I definitely, want to live a life that I'm not worried about, economics at all. That I can take, a vacation if I want to. I can travel. I can give a gift to whomever I want if I want to. Now, on the other hand, part of that success is being able to do quality work with quality people, so that work gets well recognized, right? So you know, to sometimes to do this kind of projects, you do need a way to sponsor them, to finance them. So it's kind of like a cycle, right? You know, you get. You do quality work, you should be able, success means to be able to be recognized for that work, and that work gives you the economic rewards that allow you not only to live comfortably, but to do more of that. So
it totally makes sense. Wow, totally understand what you're saying. I have those thoughts quite often too, as far as getting that balance. So when it comes to considering the ups and downs, okay, should I quit my job today? Should I pursue my dream job? Will my dream career or passion pay the bills? Are there any tools, techniques, advice, anything that you've ever come across your way that really helped you make certain decisions? Feel free to share any tools, tips, books, anything like that ever helped you to.
Yeah. Well, in my case,
to get.
In my case, I think part of the fact that I'm being able to do what I'm doing right now is the fact that, on one hand, I had a severance package, from the company because I worked for many years. And that gave me the stability to start, to finance certain projects, to get things started to where I needed them. But I couldn't do this without the support of my husband, because in the moments of doubt and uncertainty on how things are going to work from the economic side, I know that I'm not alone, that he is my support spiritually, as a partner, with everything that I'm doing, and of course, economically. And I see this moment in my life as a moment of, getting to the point where I can start seeing the fruits of my work, which is what we talked about, success. I am completely sure that it's going to happen. If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't be doing this. I just know that it's going to take some time and
patience.
Yes. But I'm not alone. He is my partner on this, and I would say, what would you do? Well, if you're a person that are considering doing a career change, and you don't have like a startup right away, like I did, something to give you some flexibility. We'll start with smaller goals, right? And try to make those little goals successful, so that they can fund you for the next step. And
there's incremental steps that we talked about earlier.
And I have seen, in many cases, many creative people that I know, have the fortune of, also being in a partnership where, somebody has the steady income, and the other person has these projects that, sometimes they give a great amount, sometimes is, a little bit more sparse, but that's one thing that helps. And well, if you're at a point in your life where you are planning to do it, let's say I did plan for 3 years, but you may be planning it for 5 years, right? And you say to yourself, well, in 5 years, I'm going to quit my job, and during this time, I'm going to educate myself on the things that I need to do to make it happen. And if you have the money right now, because you're earning a steady income, invest, right? Try to get some investment that allows you to get some passive income that helps you fund that, that in the future. You need to start out with something. Like I said, you cannot. I have to be very honest. During that period of time when I finally started considering being a full-time singer, I was just like ready to let everything behind and start doing it because I wanted it so badly. And you know, I think it was best that I waited for the right opportunity, because it wouldn't have been sustainable. So you have to really wait for the right moment. But what I want everybody to be really clear about is that waiting for the right moment doesn't mean slacking off. It doesn't mean that you're not going to start right now doing what you want, what you're set out to do. I don't know. In my case, it was singing, but in your case, it can be, you know, writing or painting, or maybe you just want to dedicate to build houses or whatever it is. But you know, start doing what you can right now. And start practicing that every day, and start getting it rounded in all the things that you don't know about how to, you know, how to make it right, how to make it successful, so that by the time that you know, that the plan is in progress, and you arrive to that point in time, then you can feel that you have everything in place, and then decide if you're ready to take that step of going full time with this or not. So.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. When you wake up in the morning, do you have any certain routines, rituals that help jumpstart your day, and so you're ready, energized to win the world? Are there any certain practices that you have that helped you? That help you?
I try to get a really, really good breakfast.
That helps.
Nothing in particular, but I would have to say that my day needs to start with really taking care of myself, because I work very hard, and you know, one way of starting my day, a lot of your work doesn't happen on a desk. It doesn't happen on a computer. It happens right here in your mind.
Yeah.
So if you can draw your plans in your mind, if you can draw your goals, if you can draw your day out in your mind before you go out and do anything, you'll realize that then you're really clear as to how to distribute your time and how to make it really efficient. So for me, it is like that. I have 2 moments where I just regroup and take that moment to just, you know, think, you know, plan out my day, come up with creative ideas, kind of like a meditation kind of thing. And one is my breakfast, and the other is at night. I take a long, hot bath. That's what I do. And that's a moment to reconnect, to, you know, clean all the noise in my head and focus as to, okay, am I on track with what I'm doing? Yes, I am. Okay, I'm not. This is what I need to do. So.
Wow, we've got so much ground covered. This is really, really interesting. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned, business lesson rather? What is the biggest business lesson that you've learned in the last 3 years?
Well, the business lesson, I think, it comes to how do you manage yourself as the only or the principal member of your company. You know, how to be your own boss. That's, you know, that's the main thing, is how to keep your momentum going and set your deadlines in a way that you can feel that you're making progress. Because like I said, I mean, I don't know how many people in the corporate world would feel respect for an artist as a business person, right?
That's a good point.
Yeah, there's this perception that an artist just goes with the flow and you know, comes with the wind and whatever, right?
So true.
But no, I mean, it could be like that. Many people may work like that, but you know, as a business person, that in my case has an artistic endeavor, you know, yes, many things have to be spontaneous, but many things come from planning and setting goals and being strict with those goals and working with people that are responsible and that are capable and that you can rely on. So that's basically just treat your endeavor, your enterprise as if it was, any kind of business, outside. In my case, like I said, it's not like, any another corporation where, like, you can think about if I was working in oil, right, and I had, a contract here, a contract there, it would be a different kind of revenue. In this case, I have to make the revenue through my own ideas, right? I have to produce the money from ideas.
Yeah.
And of course, the idea is just the logistical part and the event itself. Now it comes, of course, my performance, right? Because if I don't perform well, then the people are not going to come to my shows, right? But everything happens from an idea. And so, you have to be very, very strict and very focused as to making those things happen, and fund you back again to continue doing other things.
Right.
So
Yeah. Gotcha. What is the biggest sacrifice that you've made on this journey? Looking back at the corporate career, what is the biggest sacrifice, if any? Well,
yeah, the biggest sacrifice was not to have the large income that I had back then. I mean, I didn't have to worry about anything, at that moment. And it's not like I'm worrying right now either, but I cannot, have the same, power to buy, material things that I could afford before. I have to measure more. I have to be a little bit more thoughtful about how I spend my money, about how many times I go outside to eat, things like that. But I don't negate myself from important things and those kind of pleasures. At least, even though it's not as often, at least it happens with a sparser frequency, but I still do them. So it's a way for me to reconnect with the pleasure of living. But I have to be very thoughtful about doing those things, and that's one of the things that I have given up, which I don't really mind. Like I said to you before, I am very clear about what needs to. That you only really need so little to be happy. It's not
so
about
true,
material
so
things.
Yeah.
It's about having the right people in your life. It's about having a beautiful relationship that that gives you peace and that gives you joy. It's about being able to sing for me.
And it's just that peace of mind that you wake up every day and you are happy.
Exactly.
How many people are miserable just day to day, day after day, year after year. They hate their jobs, they hate their life, and they see no way out. To me, you're paying a much higher price in that type of scenario, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the big picture.
Yes, and I mean, when I think about the things that I may have lost, I have to think about the things that I have gained.
Absolutely, that's
because
the upside.
Yes, maybe I don't have the same income that I had as a geologist before, but I have flexibility with my life to do anything I want. I have my projects and my energy are being spent on things that come from me and that benefit me, and I'm not gonna is a project that has a unity, and nobody can, as long as I'm alive, nobody can attempt doing anything against it. And my success comes from the things that I do directly. It doesn't, like in the corporate world, I'm going to be very open and honest here, because I lived in the corporate world for a long time. But you have to deal with big egos, and you have to always deal with egos everywhere, right? But in the corporate world is a big issue. And everybody wants to have a managerial position, so they feel that they have power. So sometimes the competition is fierce and is unloyal, and then the people that as a woman, I did feel that I had to fight myself through in a manner that I never thought, to be heard, and not every time, and not on every project, but one particular project, I did have to, deal with these kind of issues of being a woman and dealing with situations where, obviously the person that is in power doesn't like women that much. It's something that I never thought it would happen, but you deal with those kind of things. You deal with the fact that you want to see your mother that is dying in my case in Venezuela, but you can't take all the time that you want because you have a project that you have to finish, that your boss is not going to understand that you need to take that time off, and then you have to see that situation pass and feel so poorly because you feel like a slave, or you can't take that liberty. So you know what, I think that was one of the things that kind of like defined it for me, that I'm done with being in that kind of situation. I want to be my own boss, and I want to manage my projects with the same ethics that I do at a corporation, but above all things, it's myself, and I am the one making the decisions and not asking permission from anybody. So, but I don't want to talk badly about my experiences in the corporate world necessarily, because I had an amazing time. I traveled all the world, well, big part of the world. I met amazing people. I made wonderful friendships. I learned so much about managing a project, about managing risk on a project that I use every day in my life. I wouldn't give that up for anything. However, like I said, you change. And what was important to you before stops being important at some point in your life, and you grow up into other interests and other priorities. And for me, it was very clear that my priorities were spend my energy in things that had a lot of meaning to me and that could benefit other people at a spiritual level. To me, singing is a way of connecting with people, but it's a way of giving part of my soul to other people. Now, as a listener, I have experienced so many times where listening to somebody play or somebody sing was so healing and so comforting that at that particular moment I felt joy, and I thanked the universe for allowing me to experience that particular time. And I went to that person, I said, thank you for what you just did. So I feel that with what I'm doing, I can benefit people in that manner.
Yeah, it's funny, the way you said it, I apologize for interrupting, but I just have to jump in right here, because that's exactly how I felt when I listened to your album. It was so healing, so peaceful. It was so sort of like meditative and sort of a very mindful state that you put me through with your music, put me into. So yeah, I felt exactly that way about listening to music, very honestly.
That's important for me to hear, because it is my goal. And I think, it's beautiful to know that what you are setting out to transmit is being received that
Absolutely.
way. And I do feel that, you know, if I can bring joy to somebody, even for a moment, that's the best for me, you know? And granted, I'm feeling joyful as I'm doing it because, you know, I am exposing myself when I sing, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just a theatrical thing, it's a rehearsed thing. I mean, you may think that it's a calculated thing. Yeah, it is in terms of knowing your song, knowing your lyrics, and you know, knowing how to deliver it. But when I'm singing a song, I am in the story of the song, and I mean, it could connect me with something that I have lived in the past, something that I am living right now, something that it may be something that doesn't have anything to do with me, but I do get into the story, and I have to tell the story like it's mine. And at that moment, I am completely opened.
Yeah.
It's like I'm completely vulnerable.
Yeah.
And many times I have been singing and I have been crying, you know, tears flowing through my eyes because, you know, I'm totally in the story. And you know, so the other person is feeling it, but I am experiencing it too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and for me, that's the biggest reward is, you know, that people can get that gift of healing and peace and connection through the music.
Yeah, and that brings me to my next question about the creativity and how to keep that constant flow of creativity and ideas. What do you do? Is there anything that you do to get yourself, to get some inspiration or to get yourself out of the creative rut? Is there anything that works particularly well for you?
Yeah. So I've been in those creative ruts. Well, I think I've learned to manage those because of the book that I told you earlier when we met. I read a wonderful book by Julia Cameron called The Artist Way. And this book talks about exactly how to get out of those creative ruts. Sometimes, you know, it's difficult to think how to start, but it's basically when you feel that you are not producing ideas yourself, you have to go out and see art and hear music. This is applied to my case, right, as a singer, and that's what I felt that has helped me the most is to you know, get out and listen to other people playing, other people singing, going to shows, you know, where I get the stimuli of the new, right? You know, seeing how somebody's managing an aspect of the production, even those things, the aspect of the production, everything. Because when you start seeing those things, you start, you know, thinking, oh well, maybe I can take this for one of my things. And then you start building a vision. I think creativity comes from several things. Comes from a problem that you have to solve and a limitation. Well, that problem or that limitation is part of the problem, right? You have to come up with a solution on a restrained environment, right? So when you listen to other people, when you see other people's work, you get ideas on how to attack possible limitations. Now, on the other hand, you do need that limitation. How does that limitation come about? It comes in terms of deadlines, in terms of you know, setting out to do something that has a finite, you know, time frame. So, for example, you know, okay, I'm going to give one specific example. You know, at one point where I had just finished my CD and that was kind of like a low time, I one thing that kind of helped me was go see other people. And that was so good because it connected me and kind of started to jam, go to jazz jams and things like that,
Okay.
right? So through that came, an opportunity to play at a place, right? Now, once I was playing at that place, it comes as the thing is like, okay, what am I going to do now with this? Am I going to just continue playing here? Or, what opportunities am I going to give myself? So one of the things that I did was, okay, I'm going to do a concert. It's going to be this repertoire. And with my band, we started working on that deadline and working on that thing. So when you have a deadline, when you have a problem to solve, and that problem has the component of time, you get creative. That's kind of how it works.
There's no other way. You figure
Yeah.
things out.
You figure things out.
Yeah. Understand. Yeah, that's that applies to almost any problem, really, right? If you put the the time component to it, you'd be amazed how you can what you can
because you
deliver.
have to. I mean, if you put it in a general context, the time factor is going to limit things in a manner that, okay, it may not be your brightest idea, but it's an idea. And now, once you apply that idea in that context, then that becomes a building point for the next idea, because then you test it, then you lab it, right? You put it into a lab, and then you realize that, was it that good of an idea or not? How can I make it better next time? You learn from it, and then from then you have new tools to for your next problem. So.
Interesting. Yeah, we were wrapping it up by looking at your entire career and thinking, how much of your success would you attribute to hard work, to luck, other people's help? How much of your success do you attribute to each of those maybe categories or groups?
Well, I think that the biggest part comes from the hard work and being decided to make it happen, to trust that I can make it happen, and to know myself enough that I know what are the things that I need to improve about myself, and what are things that I can give that are at a level that I consider good. So the other, I would say, and that's I would call that 75% maybe.
Okay.
The other 25, I think, comes from the universe that listens to your intention and just allows things to happen and opens the doors for you, or allows you to recognize the doors that are opened in front of you because you're opened to those ideas. So that 25% is kind of a, I don't know if it's exactly that number, but it's a very, very important one. It wouldn't, like, you cannot forget about that. Is critical. And in that category, I think, go, taking something that may be a disastrous thing for somebody as an opportunity for you. In the case of, the layoffs at the oil industry, a lot of people were heavily depressed and suffered immensely for the change and for the uncertainty. So but to me it was a blessing, and I took it as a blessing. So, you know, and to me it was the universe kind of acting along the path that I had initiated. So I think that big part of my success is, yes, being clear about where I'm going, but having the universe pushing your back, again, making you go forward, and also, you know, having your intention set out allows you to have your eyes open for recognizing the things that you want to happen in your life, but that are there waiting. I mean, the way that I see things is that all the opportunities are around you at all times. Intention is what focuses you enough to take all the noise out and recognize that those opportunities are there already. Because if you don't have the intention, those opportunities are going to be there, but you're not going to see them, and you're not going to know where you're going to go. So that's kind of how I see it. So that's why I think that 25% is so critical. And in my case, within that 25% is the love and the support that I have from my husband. You know, I could not imagine, you know, at this point in my life, you know, him not being part of what I'm doing. Having the musicians that I have that are incredible, that are, you know, very talented, the musicians that have worked with me, you know, ever since I got back into singing, that have collaborated with me, you know, to make what I am, you know, to make the things or make it happen the way it is right now, that have accompanied me throughout this journey of, you know, escalating, and the musicians that, you know, are being part of my world right now too. So it's a little bit of all that.
Yeah, got it. So what's coming up next for you, Raquel, and where can our viewers and listeners find you? Book you, tell us all about it.
Well, I have a project called Passion. Go figure, why is that called like that? And it's a Latin jazz project. I'm trying to get that recorded, and we were going to record it in August, but I'm pushing that date to September for some important reasons. And so the next step is going to be recording that. We're also going to do a concert on August 24th, but it's going to be a quartet, not going to be the full band. And that concert is going to be in Katy at a bar called Cepeda. 24th of August, and it's going to be at 9 o'clock, doors open at 8, and you can buy the tickets at Click Event. And I'm also organizing a series of concerts, both with duo concerts and also full band concerts during the month of August, the end of August, and also during the month of October. So that's what's coming up, and you will see the announcements if you connect to my Facebook page, Raquel Cepeda Music. You will be able to get the notifications if you subscribe to my notifications. And you can also join my email list. If you go to my website, raquelcepeda.com, you can find a place where you can subscribe to my email list, and I write every week telling where I'm going to be and what's going on. You can, and that's a great way to stay connected with me directly as well, because you can, reply to that, and I will reply to you from there.
And we'll be sure to include all of those links, details in the show notes.
Yes.
So you can click directly and go check it all out.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's what's coming. I'm hoping that this work, Passion, this repertoire, which has it's Latin jazz from American pieces translated into the Latin rhythms, but also Latin songs, standard songs with arrangements that bring out all this, beautiful harmonies and rhythms of Latin jazz, and also some original songs. Well, I'm hoping that this work, once it gets recorded, and we already have some videos on YouTube, that work can be brought and exported to other cities in the U.S. Or hopefully through other continents. So
wonderful. We'll be following you. We'll be following your successes and sharing anything and everything that you're up to. Absolutely. What a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Natasha.
It was so
Thank you
much
so
fun.
much.
And
Thank you.
not only that it was an inspirational story, but it was also so insightful and full of words of encouragement and full of good advice that I think anybody and everybody who is listening or watching this can take away and apply to a certain part of their life, whether it's their career, their personal aspirations, or even relationships.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Natasha. Thanks, everybody. I hope to see you soon.